General.
Mr. Speaker, sir, just a few comments. Before I start, most certainly we can see that the quality of debate and contribution has dropped compared to what we had in the past 2 days, Mr. Speaker, sir. And of course, the intellectual prowess no longer exists because the absence sometimes of many actually uplifts the quality of a particular forum. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to, of course, just highlight some of the issues regarding FIU. I'd like to firstly thank Razim Baksh in particular, who has been heading FIU for a number of years now. And in fact, what the members talk about FIU being, independent, etc., in the early days when we started under QB Bale. In those days, of course, it had to be done post the events of the September events in USA, when a number of the laws were passed in USA, and countries that dealt with the USA banking system had to, in fact, were compelled to sign up to various laws and various measures in respect, in particular, at that point in time, to stop terrorism financing. And we had, as a result of that, of course, the Financial Transactions Reporting Act. Under the FTRA, of course, a number of institutions and organizations and professions actually got caught under that. So things like real estate agents, lawyers, accountants, and various other professionals actually had to have their accounts audited and indeed submitted to ensure that they comply with the FTRA. That really is the genesis of that. And it propelled, in fact, an entire segment within the financial sector internationally, where each and individual country had to have in place intelligence units within their financial systems to ensure or trace or trail the money that came into their country and indeed went out of their country, and to also ensure collaboration between the different countries to stop terrorism financing, and of course the net enlarged also to stop things like the cleaning of money, what we call money laundering. In Fiji, of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, the FTRA was signed, so Fiji actually agreed at that point in time, post the events of September in USA, that we will not, for example, allow offshore banking. Some countries actually still do offshore banking, but they have put in place certain measures. And Singapore is one of those countries that has a form of offshore banking, if you like. Fiji has agreed not to do so at all. Now, Mr. Speaker, sir, what has actually happened over the past number of years? The level and the type of intelligence gathering has become quite sophisticated and indeed quite nuanced. And it is very, very critical that our intelligence unit, in particular FIU, keeps abreast of that. And Razim actually has been driving that force. And in fact, now through the Anti-Money Laundering Council, which consists, of course, the Solicitor General, the Governor of the Reserve Bank of Fiji, the CEO of FRCS, or Fiji Revenue Customs Services, the DPP, the Commissioner of Police, and of course the Director of FIU. They form the core of AML, AMLC actually I should say, and the invited members from time to time are the PS for Defence, PS for Economy, PS for Foreign Affairs, the Director of Immigration, and of course the Deputy Commissioner of FICA. Mr. Speaker, sir, a number of recommendations actually have been made by the Asia Pacific Group on Money Laundering regarding Fiji's need to comply with further standards that they've put. They're fairly onerous, and currently the Council is working on 6 recommendations, and that is to further enhance the laws pertaining to targeted financial sanctions related to terrorism and terrorist financing, targeted financial sanctions related to proliferation, non-profit organizations. There are a number of NGOs are now currently acting as fronts, transparency and beneficial ownership of legal persons. And if you'll see now under the new Companies Act, if you go and register a company, previously you could actually register a company and have another company as the shareholder of that company. So now under the law you're required to trace it all the way down to see who will be the beneficiary of those shares, and indeed the dividends that may be declared through the holding of those shares by those respective companies. Transparency and beneficial ownership of legal arrangements, and again into asset holding, and last but not least is regarding extradition. Mr. Speaker, sir, again, we have got 6 of the laws regarding that need to be reviewed to give further compliance with this. And Mr. Speaker, sir, for example, the Public Order Act needs to be looked at, because as you know now that the Public Order Act actually has sections relating to terrorism financing. And that's under the Public Order Act, and not what Honourable Nawaikula was mentioning about the Public Order Act being amended because of what they've been saying. It's to do specifically with terrorism financing. And again, Mr. Speaker, sir, there's also been a need to look at what we call non-profit organizations or NGOs. Are they acting as fronts? And we have now actually, if you look at those of you who try to register a NGO now or a charitable organization, indeed in some countries they've seen a trend where charitable organizations indeed act as fronts for terrorism financing or money laundering, etc. Now we require, for example, police clearance. We need to know actually originally who are the trustees, who are the directors of those organizations, and we're putting that in force. And again, we're looking at some of the company regulations to be able to get our compliance up to speed. And Mr. Speaker, sir, we've also looking at some extradition matters, because money laundering is so in certain parts so proliferated that we need to be able to work with our partners to be able to ensure that they have confidence in our system. Mr. Speaker, so just to perhaps clear up some of the misunderstandings, in particular from the other side, regarding the financial systems, FIU is part of ensuring the needs about ensuring integrity within our financial system. But the main boy, if you like, or main girl in all of this is the Reserve Bank of Fiji. You have what we call the APRA rules that Reserve Bank of Fiji actually adheres to. So if, for example, just putting it simply, if somebody tomorrow decides to send some money across to a bank account in Fiji, the institution that actually immediately says yes or no to that is the Reserve Bank of Fiji, because they control currency movements in and out of Fiji. And indeed, under the relevant law, the banks are compelled to report any transactions, both domestic transactions and also international transactions, of any amount of $10,000 or more. The Reserve Bank, of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, has a number of other checks and balances in respect of the banking system. FIU actually plays a very pivotal role in respect of the intelligence gathering and also the intelligence dissemination. So, for example, is what the Minister for Industry and Trade was saying, that when you get a foreigner coming into Fiji wanting to set up a company, and before they get given a foreign investment certificate, now the Investment Fiji actually has to send all their particular personal details to FIU. And FIU does a background check on that. And in fact, we've had also many investors that have come directly to government or write letters to government saying, we want to set up a rail system between Suva and Nosori. We want to set up some, energy company. We immediately refer to FIU, and invariably, we find that most of these organizations actually are bogus organizations. They have a false website. They have an address maybe in some country that does not exist. So FIU actually gives that information to us, and they're quite pivotal in that respect, and therefore they do contribute towards ensuring that we do not allow the pernicious effect of things like money laundering. Because once your borders in that sense becomes porous, then your financial system can actually wither away, and people won't have confidence in your system at all. So, Mr. Speaker, so I'd like to also highlight that the FIU has currently been working with as we mentioned, the Asia Pacific Money Laundering Unit. They've been seconding staff offshore. Of course, the real estate agencies and real estate agents, they are now licensed and they fall under the Ministry of Industry and Trade. They're an independent body unto themselves. And there is a need to look at, for example, professionalizing real estate agents. But professionalizing does not necessarily mean that you'll stop money laundering or any deleterious effect of underhand dealings in real estate. You can be a professional real estate agent, as seen in many countries, but you can also be a crook. You can also be facilitating money laundering. So there needs to be certain laws in place. One of the ways that we've also tried to curb and one that we put in place, the members of Parliament may remember before 2018, that we brought in place a law in Fiji where no foreigner now can own any real estate, meaning land, within a municipality, bounds of a municipality, as far as residential housing is concerned. Because we did see that it was actually pushing up the price of real estate. And as a result of that, we saw the prices actually, stabilize. So the point that I'm trying to make, Mr. Speaker, sir, is that it is a holistic approach. FIU is important. So is, for example, the Reserve Bank of Fiji, of course, is critically important. FRCS is important. So we need to take a whole of state approach in respect of ensuring that we protect our financial systems, and we're also able to work with the various international partners to ensure that there is integrity within our financial system, Mr. Speaker, sir. I'd like to thank the committee for the report, Mr. Speaker, sir. I note they're not making specifically any recommendations per se, but are recognizing the work that has been done, Mr. Speaker, sir. And I'd like to thank once again FIU for their work. Thank you.